You know how my camera is set up. I run I run my camera a lot of times with off of an external battery pack that powers everything that's on my rig that I have set up. And we were all outside the courthouse. Nobody was in the building, period. And the way this courthouse is set up, it's an old one. It was built in what was it, 1878, 68, somewhere, late 1800s. It when when it was built, it had the open air design. You can hear literally everything that happens in that building, and even the front door opening and closing. Well, everybody was outside. We we're all out there, and you hear on one of my cameras the little gate swing that separates the area where the counselors would sit from where everyone else would sit in the courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
That gate swings, and about 2 seconds later, and keep in mind, you don't hear any footsteps, nobody talking in the building, nothing, complete silence, except for that gate swing, and you hear a click, and then the camera dies. What that click was them switching off the power or the battery pack.
Astounding. Don't you think that's just
I,
so cool?
I have people on my team that wouldn't know to flip that particular switch. Um, but we're at an old, nearly 150-year-old courthouse, and apparently the ghosts know how to flip that switch.
Well, they probably watched you switch it on.
Probably.
I mean, if they're in that courthouse, they're not ignorant people.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably observant. They were observant enough if they were behind that gate, to be an official within the court of some type. So that doesn't astound me as much as the fact that it just actually happened. Right? That's just bizarre.
I know, and it blows my mind. But, talking about equipment and stuff, though, I mean, I have heard, and I know this sounds crazy. I feel crazy saying it, but, I've heard voices come through, and somebody else heard them too, so I'm not that crazy. But, but I've heard voices come through a speaker that wasn't even plugged up, didn't have any kind of power on it or anything. And it wasn't one. And it wasn't one that, like an amplified speaker. It's just a speaker.
I love
Not
that
plugged
stuff.
in. And, I've seen appliances I've seen a lamp come on that wasn't plugged up. I've seen appliances do that. I've heard an elevator ding that doesn't even have power on it.
Now, I had that happen at Old South Pittsburgh Hospital.
That's one of the places I've had that happen.
And I was lying on the air.
Yep.
It was
Old South Pittsburgh Hospital. I remember we were up in the old ICU area, or not the ICU, but the old recovery room, going through there, and we were actually hearing heart monitors and stuff on the audio. And
I don't doubt it.
Well, so that's one of the places I want to go back to.
Well, I'm curious to see what it's going to be like, because, Ronnie D has purchased it, and he is actually taking it back to what it was like when it was operational. So I would love to be investigating there right this minute. But, it's an amazing thing, because I don't know if the hospital is going to be more active because this is happening, or if it's going to be maybe soothed because it will feel like someone cared. And I know that sounds crazy to give inanimate objects emotions, but I think that that's a possibility. it's just a neat concept, and that place would be one that would react, I feel like.
Hmm. Well, just because an object might be inanimate and might have its own energy doesn't mean that it doesn't have energy attached to it.
True that. That place does.
Hmm.
I got locked in the cafeteria my very first time investigating there, and the doors, it shouldn't have been a possibility. I mean, there should not, logistically, it should not have been a possibility. And it was full of, you know, insulation and ceiling tiles. I mean, it was just a
Yeah.
mess. And I came from the kitchen area because I knew that the door to the hallway from the dining area was open when we walked down. And when I walked through from the kitchen into the dining area to go out, that door was closed. And when I got to it, it was locked. And it was a feat to get to it, actually, because it
Oh,
was so messy.
oh yeah, the way they had it,
Yeah.
yeah, pretty rough.
And then when I went to go back to leave, I couldn't go out that way either. And I was like, this really is not funny. Please open one of the doors. And,
Right.
it was just one of those wacky doodle things, which South Pittsburgh is full of.
Yes. Well, I mean, even the downtown streets of South Pittsburgh are known for hauntings. I mean, they had
Yeah,
that famous feud out between the sheriff's deputies versus the South Pittsburgh police.
which is
That,
just bizarre.
yeah. So, even the little stores and restaurants there in the old downtown part, people talk about seeing things, having hair pulled, all kinds of crazy stuff happening.
I could see that.
Hmm.
Uh,
But that, yeah, there's a lot of history in that little town anyway, but especially with that hospital.
well, I lived up there in Tracy City, right up above it, on top of Montego Mountain for a year and a half.
Hmm.
And that little town was weird too.
Yes.
And I didn't even do what I do now. So that was just interesting.
Absolutely.
In fact, there was a recent Ghost Hunt Weekends event in Tracy City, and I had gone up
Oh.
to visit and thought, well, while they're doing this, I'll just go over and see what they have going on at this bakery. And
Hmm.
it was really an interesting place. Really an interesting place. So I think it has to do with we were talking about geological influences, and I think that South Pittsburgh has the river. It has that
Hmm.
mountain next to it, which is so energetic. It
Hmm.
has, and it's a fairly untouched mountain.
Hmm.
Just the top, but and a lot of it's still untouched. I think that there's just so much activity in that area because of the environment.
Hmm. And you see that a lot, where there might not be as much history that you would typically associate with a paranormal hotspot, so to speak,
Right.
but the environmental conditions are right for it.
And I think everything around that mountain experiences that.
Well, like just last night, we investigated out at the museum, and um, Sylacauga is known as the Marble City.
Hmm.
You know, on one of the largest marble deposits, and that marble's what it was famous for many years, and I believe that that's the reason that particular museum is so active is because you're sitting there in a building made of primarily marble in an area on top of one of the largest marble deposits in the country.
Exactly.
Now, given how much history that area has, how much is that recorded? And how is that marble affecting the environment? Because usually where you have marble, you're also going to have higher levels of limestone, quartz, other natural crystals. Um, so geologically, it's a prime location.
Mm-hmm. It is. And then you just add all the artifacts that are there.
Mm-hmm.
We actually had somebody say that they didn't feel like it was a very haunted place, or like there was no activity. And I was like, were
Mm-hmm.
we at the same investigation? Because I don't agree with that statement. And
Oh yeah.
they actually withdrew the statement. So it was interesting because I have been there for, I think this was our third time taking people
Mm-hmm.
as a public investigation, and all of our money all the ticket sales go to the museum. This is a
Mm-hmm.
fundraiser for the museum. And I think that that is something that I've never been bored there. Yeah,
Right.
that sounded like I just lost my train, but I didn't. I was trying to think how I wanted to say that. There's always been activity. It's always interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That Native American artifact area specifically is very active normally. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, even in the entry, it was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It was crazy while we were there. And it always is. There's always activity in that area. So
Well,
it's
think of last night when we were doing the experiment with you know with the Gansfeld experiment. Um, that the girl sitting there feeling dizzy and basically all the sensations that she's seeing and feeling like a mimicking a vehicle wreck.
yes.
And and feeling like there was a little boy there, the questions that we were asking and the information, and she's completely unaware of what we're asking, but everything that she's saying is directly correlating.
Yes.
um, so that and the night before when we did it same way. you know so yeah, there's definitely some form of energy there.
Very strong.
Mhm.
We have another question for you in chat.
Sure.
So, and Brenda is having a heyday. So she is getting to ask every question she ever thought she might want to. But this is, other than the Paulding Jail, which we had spoken of,
hmm
what else is on your bucket list, paranormally speaking?
I have always, always wanted to go there. And there are a few places. One would be the, of course, Dracula's Castle.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
That is a place that, oh gosh, that is so high on my bucket list. It is unreal. Um, I've always wanted to check out that place because can you imagine centuries of residual activity there and the memories recorded in those walls to replay? Um, that is definitely one. Um, Another one I've always wanted to check out the Edinburgh vaults.
Yes.
You know,
Oh my gosh.
and
Me too.
that is one. I would love to investigate Alcatraz. Um, that is that's one of those places that There's just